Very good morning. We are discussing exceptions. We are in the fourth module and we already discussed packages and interfaces. And in the last class, we started exceptions. And exceptions means one thing what comes into mind is it is runtime, and that is unexpected situation that you may not predict. Okay? So the solution is you are safeguarding your program with providing how to handle this mechanism. That's what actually exception is. And here three different ways of handling that. That's what we observed in the last class. That is try catch, throw, and throws. Try catch is generally like you will put the block which is you are expecting that some problem may occur that inside the try, and using catch you are holding that particular uh, unexpected situations. Then throw is explicitly when you are specifying any exception, and throws is for the methods. That means you are indicating the caller that this method may throw the exception, so you take care of yourselves. So invoking, who will invoke that method, they will put that method inside try catch block, and method should specify throws exception. So that's what we observe. And now we'll move to next concept. I'll share the presentation. Very important feature of Java, that is exception handling, and how Java is robust. Among that, this is one criteria, handling the errors. So this is what about next concept, that is finally. After try catch throw throws, we are discussing finally. What is actually finally? Finally means exception alters. Normally, exception means it alters the normal flow, and it leads to return prematurely. That's what normally occurs, because exceptions alters the normal flow. It leads to return prematurely, and some actions are mandatory whether exception occurs or not. So that is very important point which you should know, because normally what we observe, exception means it halts the program, is it not? But due to the exception, even though prematurely it comes out, some particular task, for example, like file closing, free the resources, like if you are reading from the external device and after reading that you have to close, in between some problem occurs, such things. You are opening the file for reading and in between the reading some problem occurs, but you forget to close that. In between exception occurs, that will come to the catch. Okay, so such situation, how to handle? There comes finally, but it is optional, like not necessary. Whenever you are specifying try, you have to write finally. Okay, it is optional. If you wish some particular task you have to perform, whether exception comes or not, then you are including finally. See, observe here. See the diagram. See, I written catch try catch finally. Try catch finally. See, let us consider inside try catch we are having a code where exception occurred. Then what happens? It will come to catch. Okay, exception occurred, it comes to catch, and after that, immediately after catch, we have written finally block. Okay, so how to represent finally, that also you should know, is it not? So finally block, that also will be executed, because whenever exception occurs, it will come to catch, and after catch, the particular block what you specified, that is finally, that also will be executed. See other diagram. Let us consider there is no exception. That means exception is not occur. In such cases, it will not come to catch. Is it not? It will not come to catch itself. It will not come to this particular place because no exception, then no catch. But finally will be executed. That means finally black. If you write finally black, it executes always, irrespective of exceptions. Whether exception comes or not, finally will be executed. So always remember, always. Finally means always. Always executes. Other try catch means if exception comes, then only. With exception, then only. Okay. But finally means always. That's what the difference. And how to write finally? You can't write only finally black. Okay, it should always accompany with try. Right? Finally. See, this is how to represent that. See, catch is not mandatory. Okay. Try with finally also you can write. So this is how to represent finally, because exception when you are discussing, finally also you have to know. So this is what the highlight. If you write finally black, it executes always, irrespective of exception. Because catch will be executed if exception comes. After that, if you write finally, that also executes. See, after try exception occurred, it will come to catch. It also comes to finally. Okay, see, due to file reading, some file reading operation, exception occurs, it comes to catch. And after that, in finally, you will write some code which should be executed, like closing the file. If an exception comes, means it will come to this particular catch. You will not close the operation. That means operation what is specified here, that will not be executed. Such operations you will specify in finally black, because that will execute always if exception comes or not. Because here no exception, then also finally executed. Here exception, then also finally executed. That's what finally means. Next, very important, that is Java's built-in exceptions. We'll focus on how built-in exception. Some of that you already observed. Just there are two ways of exceptions. As I told earlier, I am concentrating more about exception for this particular module. One separate question you may get on this itself, on exceptions itself. See, there are two types of exceptions: unchecked exceptions and checked exceptions. Now, when you observe this, just I wanted to show closely like how this particular process takes place. That is, just I highlight this. See, all particular exception comes with throwable. Throwable is first. From that, error or exception. Exception means IO exception, runtime exceptions, IO exception, SQL exception, like that, many checked exceptions. Okay, so you have to write explicitly these exceptions. That's what checked exception. I'll give the definition of that. Then runtime exception, that means you have to specify arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, like that. Other unchecked exception. What is this checked exception and unchecked exception that we are discussing here? Unchecked exceptions means the exception which are not checked by the compiler. Compiler we may not be know, like divided by 0. The compiler is not forcing, oh, you write exception. It just throws that. Is it not? So compiler will not check. Unchecked. Compiler do not produce any error whether you handle or not. Okay, it will not tell oh, it just generates abnormal condition. That's all. It will not produce any error because you not handled. That is what unchecked exception. Examples: arithmetic exception, array index out of bound exception, null pointer exception, like that. That means it is not necessary. If you see one simple example, I'll tell you. See, I declared one array in A is equal to 1, something like that. Okay. If I am specifying A of 1, it is not necessary to catch any exception. It will work, is it not? But if I specify A of 10, then only the problem, it throws the exception array index out of bound. Is it not? Then what you have to do? You have to specify this in try catch. Okay, so that's what. That means compiler will not check. If everything is correct, it will be normal flow. But such cases, it will throw that this is array index out of bound. It will specify. It will not generate any error. You will not handle this. Okay. Once the exception comes, then you are handling that. And you please remember at least 2 to 3 unchecked exceptions: arithmetic exception, array index out of bound exception, null pointer exception, common exception normally occurs in the program. Then checked exception, how to define exception which are checked by a compiler at runtime. Compiler time error if it is not handled. That means you have to explicitly specify when you are writing in the program, you have to tell that this may throw this exception. Okay, like when you are operating with any class, it will tell class not found exception. You are calling any other class, built-in class. If that class is not there, then you will get this exception. You have to specify from the caller. Like when you are operating the thread, you have to explicitly catch this exception, interrupted exception. And another one that is illegal access exception. Okay, that also you have to specify explicitly. See, when you are writing the code, you are writing explicitly. That means when you are, just one example, run one particular method in threads. Okay, when you are writing this, you have to write this inside try catch itself, and you have to catch interrupted exception, because you know that threads means interrupt occurrence of multiple tasks together may leads to interrupt. Okay, so you have to catch that. Whenever you are writing that method explicitly, you have to specify this may throw the exception. So that is what checked exception. You have to explicitly specify that it is checked by the compiler. Or run method, if it observes, it will verify whether you included try catch in that. Okay, whether you are catching that interrupted exception. Compiler will check that. That's what checked exception. But unchecked exception, compiler will not check in any code. Some particular exceptions like arithmetic exception, array index out of null pointer, it will not specify. But once the problem occurs, it will throw that. That's all. Okay, so that's about two types of exception: checked exception and unchecked exception. In any language, if it comes, this is what the meaning. Then, after discussing that, and this is what the list is given about Java built-in exceptions. As I told, some few you try to remember, and its meaning also is specified. Unless you are not working on any particular project or code, you may not use all these particular exceptions. Okay, like that, checked exception list is also provided. It is defined in Java language package. Actually, all these particular exceptions: class not found, illegal, instantiate exception, no such field exception, like that, so many exceptions. Then try to remember, as I told, 2 to 3. Then, is it possible to create your own exception? Like so far, what we all discussed is about built-in exceptions: arithmetic exception, array index out of bound, null pointer, class not found. All these are already in the Java language package. How to create your own exception? Okay, I wanted to create some exception. See, whenever I am reading some particular number which is more than 100, I wanted to create one exception. Is it possible like that? Definitely possible. How to do that? That we'll see with an example. Let us consider one class A. So wherever you wanted to create your own exception, that class should extend exception. Okay, this is first important point. You have to write extends. Extends means some class you are inheriting. Which class you are inheriting? Exception class. The class where you wanted to create your own exception means that class should extend exception. That means it should inherit exception class. Then after that, see some class B. Inside that, public static void main. I'm writing. Okay. Then I'm calling one method M1. What is that M1? M1 is method which is static method, just I written. That's why I'm directly invoking. See, I'm specifying that this will explicitly throw one exception. See, normally what we written, if you remember, throw explicitly throws the exception, is it not? Throw new arithmetic exception, like that we are writing, is it not? Like that, here I am throwing my own exception. What is exception? That is A. That exception I am throwing. And method is also telling, indicating that, oh, if you are invoking the method, it may throws this exception. See, we are coming with throws, throw, all in single program. Throw explicitly I'm throwing inside the method, and this method is indicating that through throws. And what I have to do now, I have to include this M1 in try catch, is it not? Try catch. What catch you are doing? You are catching with A type, because A is what the exception is. Okay, and if you print E, you will get exception. Okay, that's what about this particular, how you can create your own exception, because very easy. Okay, how to create your exception? If some question comes, how to create your own exception, means that's all. One class which extends exception, and then when you are invoking any method, it should indicate that it will throws that particular exception, and inside that you explicitly specify, because I am not doing any particular operation here. As I told, nimge enadru if some particular variable ಅಂತ ಡಿಕ್ಲೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು, if a is greater than 100 means throw the exception ಅಂತ ಬರ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. Okay, any particular task where you wanted to throw the exception, ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಂಥ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಥ್ರೋ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀಬಹುದು. ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲಿಸಿಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನೀವು ಥ್ರೋ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. Okay, then where you called that in that method should be with try catch. Catch ಒಳಗಡೆ ಯಾವುದು ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್? That is A type. Okay, ನೋಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ನಾನು ಹೈಲೈಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. So please remember, if somebody asks like how to create your own exception, means you should not tell I don't know. Okay, this is how to create your own exception. Next, chained exceptions. ಇದನ್ನು ಬಿಡಬಾರದು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಓದ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ you will see this also. Chained exception, that name itself tells what is chained exception. Okay, one exception invokes another. That's what chained exception, is it not? Chained exception feature allows to associate another exception with an exception. How it is? Second exception describes the cause of first exception. Because due to, see, when you are reading anything from the keyboard, when due to reading, because you know you read some wrong information, because of that arithmetic exception occurred. Okay, ನಿಮಗೆ divided by 0 ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದಿತ್ತು, but when you are reading you read 0. Okay, so that's what this particular cause. And if a method throws an arithmetic exception because of divided by 0, however the actual cause was IO error. IO ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ರೀಡ್ ಮಾಡಲಿದ್ದರಿಂದ ನಿಮಗೆ 0 divided by 0 ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ ಅಂತ. Okay, so two things you should remember whenever chained exception. Chained exception means one exception due to another exception, and how to find that. Okay, find the cause. So there is a method get cause, init cause and get cause. Both the methods are there in chained exception. One simple example we'll see. See, we are having a class, and inside that one static method M1, and there I am specifying null pointer exception. It is built-in unchecked exception. ಅದನ್ನೇ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. Explicitly I am creating one object of type null pointer exception, and because of this null pointer exception cause is just I am explicitly ಬರಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೋ ನೀವು ಆಪರೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬಂತು ಅಂತಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಸಿಮ್ಯುಲೇಷನ್ ಟೈಪ್. Okay, one null pointer exception. On that exception object I am invoking init cause. Okay, init cause means what? ಈ ಎಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಯಾರು ಕಾಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು? init cause, that is new arithmetic exception. Okay, null pointer exception, and that cause is I am explicitly telling that new arithmetic exception, and after that I am throwing that particular object. Okay, now inside public static void main I am calling that method. As you know, I put this inside try catch null pointer exception. ನೀವು ಮೆಥಡ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಥ್ರೋಸ್ ಬರೀಬೇಕು. ಥ್ರೋಸ್ null pointer exception ಅಂತ ಬರೀಬಹುದು. Okay, then try catch null pointer exception and system.out en ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ? null pointer exception ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Okay, but when you see e dot get cause, what is the cause of this? Then you will get arithmetic exception, because this exception is due to this. ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇನಿಷಿಯಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ, this particular exception is because of this. That itself you will get. Init cause means to create the cause, get cause means to identify the cause. Okay. This exception occurs because of what? That is specified with get cause. So that's about chained exception. Okay. Then see, finally, this particular exception means it's a cleaner way to handle failure modes, because normally the normal flow of a program is one side, and we are guarding our program so that unexpected situation should not arise. How to do that? By properly handling try catch. And in try, multiple catch. And if you are not interested to put all the catches, like if this will catch, if E skips, it will catch by here. Such things you can avoid by putting the exception, because exception is the superclass, and actually it comes from throwable. Okay, so this is what normally occurs, and it is how your language becomes robust. The way of handling, see, if you not specify the array properly, immediately you'll get to know that you are referring some particular location which is not actually identified in your code. Like that we are specifying, and if you not initialize it properly, you'll get null pointer exception. Such things may arise. Okay, so this is how to handle that. So overall, our particular module 4 is dealt with these three topics: packages, interfaces, and exceptions. See, very simple chapter. Package means the code package and the name of the package. If you are using other package, means import that package with all the informations inside that. Okay, so this is what about the package. See, whenever you are importing, star indicates all the classes, all the interfaces, but not sub packages. Okay, that's why if you see the examples, you may get one example. Just I will show you. Java.awt.star, that is one side, and Java.awt.applet.star. Okay, so such things, such particular code, like even though you put star, but extended, such things you may observe in some other code. That is because import all the particular classes and interfaces, but not sub packages. Star is not everything. Okay, then, and in packages you also studied access modifiers. Okay, private, public, protected, and default. Whenever that question comes, means you have to specify two packages, P1, P2, and as you know, public means how public means in the same package, the same class, and inherited class, and other class, and other packages, inherited class, and the class in other packages. That's what public. But private means only restricted to in the same particular class where it is declared, and nowhere else it is possible to use that. And protected means in the same package in all the classes, and in only inherited class in another package, not in another particular class in the other package. But default, if you not specify anything, in the same class, inherited class, and other class which in the same package. In other packages, it is not allowed. That's about these access modifiers. Only these things related to the package. And then interfaces, interface is like a class, but here only the declaration of method, and all the declarations, methods you collected together at one place, and you call that as an interface. And you can implement that wherever you want. And you can implement more than one interfaces. And when you are implementing that, you have to specify that as a public. And because interface methods should be allowed to use by everybody. And if you implement interfaces, and if you not write the body of that method, means that class should be abstract class. And one interface can extend another interface. Okay, that also I showed in the last class. That's about the interfaces. Then exceptions. Exceptions means we discussed so many things. Try catch, throws, finally. That's about the exceptions. Exceptions are unexpected situations, runtime errors. Okay. Then try with multiple catch. That's what we discussed. And nested try. Okay. That means you can restrict try catch and outside one try catch. Like that you can write. And then another one, how to specify throw. Explicitly, if you are specifying exception means throw. And methods like you are identifying this method may throw the exception, you guard yourselves. Like that, how you are indicating with the example of throws. Then finally, which always executes whether exception comes or not. If exception comes, finally runs. If no exception, then also finally runs. Like when file closing and some mandatory operation, file closing and a resource reallocation, okay, relinquishing the resources, such things you can specify in finally block. Then we discussed chained exception and checked exceptions and unchecked exception. We discussed with example, arithmetic exception, array index out of bound, null pointer. These all are unchecked exceptions. Checked exception, class not found exception, interrupted exception, illegal access exception. Such things are checked exceptions. Compiler will identify whether you specified that exception or not in a program. Okay, such things are checked exceptions. Then chained exceptions, that's what we discussed. And along with that, how to specify your own exception. Like instead of rely on built-in exceptions, is it possible to create your own exception? Yes, that is also possible. What you have to do, the class should extend our superclass, that is exception. Okay, so all exceptions comes with throwable. And there are two types that also I showed through from throwable, errors and exceptions. In exceptions, IO exceptions and runtime exceptions. And there, this particular part, that is checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. Like that, it is divided. So that's about our module 4. And now left out is our last module, that is fifth module. So many things you'll learn in fifth module that we'll see soon. Thank you. Please, one more thing. Submit the assignment. 14th is the last day what I specified. It is for marks. Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.